Daniel, welcome to the Soccer Queens podcast.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to this. I feel like you're the jump training expert on Instagram.
I am one of them, I suppose. Yeah. I actually need to step my game up in that department. Keep my online presence growing the way some of these other guys have. So yeah.
It's been really amazing, and what I love about what you are doing is you give a lot of research, you have a lot of evidence and also experience based with your own athletes. But I'm really curious before we get into jump training, sprint training, how to get faster and more explosive like most young athletes do. What's your background? Were you involved in sports and when did you get into becoming a coach?
Yeah, so I have your typical like childhood playing a lot of sports kind of background, mostly unorganized, like neighborhood style sports, neighborhood and recess. But I got really obsessed with basketball when I was about 12. And as a product of that, obviously started thinking about wanting to dunk. And so I started jump training when I was 13, which for me meant using a low rim in my driveway to try to dunk on it. And then I had come up with some old school like plastic weights filled with cement, like that kind of style. um, and like an old barbell that weighed some undefined weight, and you had to like slide the things on and crank the thing down to keep them in place or whatever, like some old weights. And I was doing squats and calf raises down in my bedroom, actually, in my basement bedroom. And I between those two things, I gained like a foot of vertical within a year from like age 13 to 14, and ended up dunking for the first time shortly after I turned 14, and just got through that process like really into training. Like I was like, wow, this is so cool how you can train your body and it can change so drastically, and you can just do new things you couldn't do before. So that really appealed to me. And by the time I was 15, I was like, I want to be a trainer. Like I want to coach people to do this. So it was really early on that I kind of developed that passion. Yeah, I mean, it went from there. So I played basketball through high school, played 1 year of D3 ball in college, and then after that started jump training like with just a couple friends of mine, actually, like in college on campus. And then ended up with like this little jump training squad it's at University of Wisconsin La Crosse. And also got an exercise science degree. And so then I took like a long, slow road through college. So by the time I was done, I had this degree, but I also had been training people for like 4 years already. And not in any like official sense, but yeah, it was just friends or other people who heard about it who joined in. But I ended up doing like some coaching with local athletes, and yeah, got some opportunities, working with like a basketball trainer or like at this other high school, local high school and stuff like that. So that's kind of the background. After that, I spent a year. I was back in Milwaukee, did a little work with like track and basketball team at my high school, actually. And then after that, got this position down in Austin, Texas, where I've been since 2014. Yeah, it's been 10 and a half, almost years now. So yeah, down here I work with athletes in a variety of sports. Yeah, track, basketball, volleyball, soccer. Name one, I've done it. So yeah, that's kind of the short version of the story right there.
That is a really amazing story, and I always love hearing from athletes who made it to the high school level and beyond in college, what they did in their childhood to train. And I don't know, are you also a fellow millennial?
Yeah, I'm 36. I think that puts me
Okay,
in the
yeah,
millennial
you are.
category.
Yeah, I feel like we just grew up in this time where we were solving these movement problems on our own and figuring out how to jump higher and get better, and just the equipment you put together on your own to improve your jump
Yeah.
and dunk ability. That's so cool. And I don't see that as much now with young athletes. It's very organized and they're in that year round early specialization culture. And
Hmm.
I know you've written about it before and had a lot of posts on your Instagram. So maybe just get into just the dangers of early specialization and doing the same thing year round, especially for kids who really want to become explosive.
It's one of those topics that's hard to quantify, like give um, hard data on, or like even a hard like a hard science explanation. Because when it comes to motor learning and that early development, it's like there's so many things going on that we don't really know, we can't test. So it's hard to sometimes like sell people on this, but it's just there's a lot of observation on this, and definitely a lot of research as well. But the way I understand it is a key piece of physical development is variety. Like that's a massive, massive piece, and it's also exploration, and like you said, solving problems, like movement problems, and that occurs best one with just lots of different types of activities, different types of movements, as opposed to being locked down into one sport. But I think it also occurs best when it is, the kid is figuring things out and having fun as they do it, and it is more exploratory versus a coach putting them through a regimen, a coach telling them how to do all these movements. That sort of that organized, more scripted, planned out kind of a movement session, if you want to call it that, but whether it's a practice or whatever it um, is not the best way for young kids to develop physical capabilities and coordination, and throw out any phrase you want to describe physical capabilities. But yeah, it comes not from coaching and analysis and data and all this stuff. Not that those things are not good, but that young, like an easy way to define it would just be like pre-puberty. Certainly those types of ages. I just coaching them a whole bunch, and especially, yeah, doing it in the same sport all the time is just not the way to develop an athlete over time, or to set the stage for them to develop over time. Um, yeah, I think I've observed that many times over with kids who get, maybe they come to me by the time they're 12 or 13, and there's just this drastic difference between, oh yeah, I've been playing volleyball since I was 6 and that's it, versus, oh, I've done all these different sports. I do them at school, I do them with a team, yeah, but I also do them at home. I do them with my friends. Like I do it all over it's just completely unrestricted in terms of the different contexts and stuff that I do this in. And then also, have I have I taken any sport and at any point done it like 4 hours a day, or is it I'm always sort of touching on different things? And there's just a huge difference by the time somebody's 12 or 13 between those two stories. And yeah, the one who's been doing one sport and being coached in it since they were young, um, they're not as good at learning new things. They don't have as diverse of capabilities, and also, I mean, in my experience, they're not oftentimes good at the thing that they've even been working on the most. It's like, which, yeah, kind of a side piece of that, but it's even like in my jump training world, people that have like just tried to do one type of jump a whole bunch, and maybe even been coached on it, I don't think that's the way to success. I think, again, variety is key, and exploration is key, and having fun is key. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things you could talk about there, but that's kind of the big picture there, where it's yeah, the the one sport being coached all the time, all year round, is just not the way to go.
Are you finding that those really young athletes who do a single sport really young, are they less bouncy and explosive and fast as well?
I would say, I mean, I don't have a bunch of data on that, but I would say that is an observation of mine, yes.
Yeah.
Where, so yeah, I mean, pick anything, even if you want to be elite in one thing, if it's sprinting, if it's jumping, whatever it is, if the only thing you ever do is just, let's just say, sprint in a straight line, I don't think that's a good way to develop speed. I think that variety is huge, especially again at those young ages. And I even do wonder sometimes when track athletes later in their career struggle to like get faster or even maintain the same speed that I once had. I do sometimes wonder like maybe it's because you sort of locked yourself into just doing that one thing. Maybe you need to keep some of that variety in there. Hard thing to prove, obviously, but yeah, definitely. I think the more you restrict to one narrow movement or one narrow set of movements, the less you're going to develop, even in that thing that you're doing. I think you need variety in order to excel in that one. So you need the general in order to excel in the specific.
Yeah, it seems like some people, when they are chasing speed, they're just doing the one philosophy where you just have to run fast in a straight line to get fast, which, yeah, to some extent, I do agree with that. But for like the young ones, especially too, solving those problems while using their speed and creating these sessions that are very stimulating and inspire creativity and that problem solving component. And I so agree with you that those very structured, kind of like rehearsed, giving all the answers speed sessions for young ones is the worst thing you can do.
Yes, definitely.
Now,
Um,
for a
mhm.
young 10-year-old who wants to improve their vertical jump or top end speed, what do you recommend they do or who to hire specifically?
Okay, so the first thing I would say is speed in various contexts. So think of different games, right? So maybe one of them is your sport, but also play tag, also race people, also uh, chase down a ball in various ways. Any activity that gets you, accelerating and sprinting fast competitively, hopefully while having fun and not thinking about it. Doing that most days of the week, I think that's your foundation right there. Now, if you have that in place, now you get into a speed session or a track session where you are running some straight line sprints. That's a good thing when it's on top of that foundation of variety and having fun. If you start, you're just a blank slate, you have no activity going on, and then you go to a speed coach and you just do, let's say 2 sprint sessions a week where you run like, let's say 5 sprints or something. That, I mean, it may not do nothing, but that is meant to be the high intensity complement to all the other things you're doing, rather than like this is the main thing we're doing. So if somebody comes to me and I like I think I'm a great coach and I've done a lot of great work in speed. If someone comes to me and it's like I don't have anything else going on, I'm just going to come see you twice per week. Then one, I'm like, well, let's get some other things going on. Like can we find another source of speed based activity apart from this? And but then two, it's like, well, then our sessions are not going to be track practice. Our sessions are going to be chasing and competing and agility stuff, and like we're going to try to create a sport in this session if this is really all you have for speed training. So yeah, I think that big picture again is fun and variety, and do it all the time. Young kids don't have to worry about like overtraining their body very much. It's nothing they do is that intense anyway at that age. So it's fun and variety most days of the week, and then if you have an opportunity to do like some straight sprints where you really touch as high of a speed as you can and as fast a rate of acceleration as you can, then that's good. But again, it's the icing on the cake to all that other stuff.
Now, what about plyometrics for young ones? So we're talking pre-puberty. This is like the second most popular inquiry I get besides developing speed
Mm.
is how can my kid develop jumping power, lateral explosiveness, get a high vertical jump at age 10? So, what do you recommend for plyometrics for these younger kids?
So yeah, kind of if you view it sort of in the same lens where you have fun and variety as being the foundation, and then you have on top of that, yeah, maybe you do some like, you can do some jump testing or some jump for maximum height or something. But so first of all, I would say exploration and conquering challenges is better than exercises. Okay, so what I'm talking about is let's jump in a way that's fun where we're trying to achieve a goal versus like doing tuck jumps. Okay, not that some of those plyometrics are not useful, but doing pogos and stuff is that's an exercise, and absolutely kids can do it like it and it makes sense, but that's a small complement to, okay, well, let's go run and jump over that hurdle. Let's go jump up and try to touch that that low basketball hoop or whatever. I have non-basketball athletes dunk on a low rim at our gym for jump training. And so same kind of concept as the speed is like, okay, let's find different ways to jump, different challenges to give ourselves, different movement problems to solve, and do that in ways that involve jumping, right? And again, that's the foundation. That's where the motor learning is going to happen. That's where you're going to have, people just they're not thinking about doing an exercise. They're just trying to achieve a goal, just trying to conquer a challenge. That's the foundation. That's the base. On top of that, you want to test their vertical? Sure. You want to do some pogos? Sure. You want to hop on one foot for, like I use these things a lot. But it's, we're spending 2 minutes on plyometrics and we're spending 20 minutes trying to jump over stuff. Right? Like that's the that's the formula. And so yeah, you do that for all those years of early childhood. You end up 13, 14 years old. Now the person's already a competent jumper. Now you can start talking about, all right, what are the physical qualities that we need to develop? Strength, reactive ability, that type of stuff, and maybe you can start taking some a more aggressive approach to that. But it all happens on top of that foundation of, well, I've been jumping in different ways for years and having fun with it.
That fun piece is so key because spending too much time teaching a young kid a vertical or a pogo hop just doesn't land well. They will lose their attention and just be like, "Oh, I'm bored now, not stimulated."
Yes.
So, yeah, it's so critical to have that fun and like you said, those movement problems, and it comes back to your story with when you were teaching yourself how to jump and dunk and just like at your own home, in your front
Yes.
yard. And my husband, when he was growing up, he is a baseball pitcher. His grandpa had him just throw the ball over their backyard fence, left and right hand, as many times as he could, and he had to try and get it over this high fence.
Hmm.
And he was like, honestly, that was better for me at that age than hiring a pitching mechanics coach to quote unquote
Yeah.
improve velocity. And he was a 95 mile per hour plus pitcher at Ole Miss. Like
Hmm.
it's just so crazy. And it's more fun playing with grandpa.
Yes, absolutely. And you're not, yeah, at that age, you're not tracking pitch counts and you don't have to think about your mechanics or any of that. It's just like, no, go out there and just try to do something fun, and I'll see you in 5 years and I bet you'll be pretty good at throwing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you'll probably will have a pretty badass velocity too.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Oh
Yeah,
my
the
gosh. Yeah,
physical
I
development
could
comes with it.
yeah, exactly. I could go off about the baseball specialization. I always have this argument, is baseball worse? Is soccer worse? Oh, they're all bad.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and
You can
basketball too. It's
definitely.
with yeah, it's getting pretty crazy, especially with the amount of tournaments these young kids are playing year round. I'm
Hmm.
not completely against tournaments, but it's just how much they're doing it on the macro level, and they're sacrificing doing, like fun speed training and being in a group and exploring. So that's kind of my issue with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that, basketball or any sport is bad, but it's like if you take this and you do it 6 to 8 games every weekend and you had to travel for it and it's like your whole life is based around this thing, and then yeah, what are you missing out on because you're doing that?
Yeah. Now, I want to get more into the weeds of jump training for the older athletes as well. So, our high school and college athletes. First of all, why is jump training important for all sports, even if your sport
Hmm.
doesn't have jumping?
Yeah, so what I tell people, I mean, the simple explanation is just like jumping develops power in your legs. That's kind of the layman's way to say it. If I was talking to a group of performance coaches, then maybe we bring a little more like physics and biomechanics into it. You talk about like, okay, speed, you're generating smaller impulses, but in a really short amount of time. Jumping, you're training yourself to generate larger impulses. And so there's a difference in the ability you're going to develop from that. Um, yeah, I mean, you could talk about developing like more muscular strength from it versus in some ways versus sprinting, or developing more power from it versus sprinting. So yeah, I mean, you could get more technical with it, but basically, it's like you develop power in your legs. And so for me, yeah, I'm all about the non-specific jump training where it's, oh, you play soccer, okay, well let's jump off 2 feet and dunk a basketball, right? Let's just be an athlete. Oh, you run track and all you do is a sprint. All right, well, let's run and jump off 1 foot and clear the highest band you can, like a high jumper would, well, minus the flop, right? Let's just again jump in ways that are fun in order to develop explosive ability in the legs, and it's as simple as that. And one of the lessons I think, or one of the observations that sort of has taught me that is you look at people that have a good jumping background, and generally you're going to find that they have some abilities in like acceleration in particular comes to mind, and then also like throwing stuff like med balls or something like that. It's like, oh wow, they can really launch that thing. Well, yeah, because they've been launching their body into the air for years, and they're really good at that. And so obviously there's a lot of general carryover from that. And so yeah, even somebody who's focused on speed, I just think about their sprint start, generating power there. If you have a jumping background, that's a massive advantage for that. So yeah, I mean, again, you could have somebody who, maybe they want to work on their acceleration, so somebody prescribes them broad jumps or repeat broad jumps, and that's good. It's a good exercise. And I use those myself, but let's do that, but let's do that on top of jumping variety and jumping fun. So again, it's foundation is challenges and exploration, and then on top of that, yeah, you can layer some rhythmic broad jumps like a plyometric exercise. Um, but yeah, it's just really good for developing that explosive power in the legs.
So, should athletes pretty much jump year round?
I would say so, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, you got to keep in mind how much of it you're doing, but yeah, you know, I don't see why any young athlete would stop jumping during the year. Even let's say a baseball player who's never going to jump in their sport, rarely going to jump in their sport, do it for power. Just do it to be an athlete. Yeah, I mean, I think yeah, you get into the older age group maybe where it's like, okay, well, we got to just not hurt their knees, and so maybe there's a time of the year where you're like, all right, we're going to back off jumping now. But yeah, young athletes, I don't think there's really a reason they would ever stop jumping.
And I also think those durations of the exercise is key. And this is one thing where a lot of people go wrong with jumping and plyometrics is they do them for minutes on end and it
Oh yeah,
defeats the purpose. I don't know if it's the same in the basketball world, but in the soccer world, there will be coaches running like a quote unquote plyometric session and it's just a circuit of constant jumps and they're
hmm
slowing down. It's not fast twitch at all. So maybe talk about the duration and what we should be aiming for with jump training.
yeah. So I think, I mean, you want to view it as a like a high intensity thing that you're trying to perform at a high level, and so you know, for somebody who jumping is their thing, they might go, like I'm involved in the dunk community, and they might go to the basketball court and they might dunk for an hour or more. Okay, but that's their sport. Somebody who's yeah, let's say a soccer player, a baseball player who's just going to use jumping. I mean, we're talking you get 10 to 15 good jumps that are like as high as you can or as far as you can or like whatever challenge you're trying to accomplish or trying to conquer. Yeah, 10 to 15, maybe 20 jumps is great, and that would be not rushed through. But I mean, you can do that in 5 to 10 minutes, and it's a small amount of time, and it's not an exhaustive thing. Now, in the plyometric realm, obviously we do have your lower intensity plyos that you can do for more volume. But even there, I mean, for me, those things are like built into a warm up, which means it's happening within 10 to 15 minutes, and it's only a part of that 10 to 15 minutes. And again, at no point is there any fatigue involved. But we could do 60 pogos within a warm up. Because I like to do like forward, backward, side to side, zigzag, like that, different varieties. You can get 60 good bounces within a warm up, but there's never, we never did more than uh, 10 in a row, and there's no fatigue, there's no no exhaustion. Because yeah, I mean that type of training you want to be quality bounces. You don't really want it to be slow and fatigued. So um, yeah, the dosages don't have to be super high. It doesn't have to take up tons of time, and then yeah, it's not exhaustive at all. Is the way I think you should be operating. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. I'll include links in the caption, obviously, to your Instagram, and then also to some of the jumps you mentioned in the episode. You've talked about pogos, broad jumps, vertical. Are there any other jumps that are like staples of your program?
I mean, I definitely mix it up. I do like jump onto a soft box, and I'll do that in like different ways. Like just last night, I had somebody doing like 180 jumps onto the box or jumping sideways onto the box. I'll do like on one foot, one hop, and then jump onto the box on the same foot, and then back, like back up the distance that they start from. You can do that same thing like on 2 feet. So it's like a broad jump to a box jump, and you start easy and you back it up, and you just keep getting further and further. You have to keep safety in mind a little bit. So like I'll hold the box down when they start coming in with some velocity at it. Um, so yeah, definitely like just holding a band or a couple bands tied together that's really thin, and then I have it just like in my fingers so I can let it go, and they can, if they hit it, nothing goes wrong. But like jumping over that, and again doing that off one foot, doing that off 2 feet. Yeah, broad jump. Oh, hops and bounds for distance. That's definitely in my repertoire. Um, Yeah, yeah, just and then just vertical testing, like jumping up trying to touch something. That is yeah, definitely a big one. Although again, the test is I don't want to always be doing the numbers because
Mhm.
that can be. that can be tough and frustrating. Like if they're not beating their previous number or whatever, or if they're 3 inches below it sometimes, because people obviously have varying levels of fatigue and stuff going on any given day. So I don't always want to just test their vert. Yeah, usually looking for one of those fun variations.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, those are really great. And I do agree with the testing. It can be discouraging if you do it too much and need to give it a
Hmm.
little bit more time to transpire or add in some variety. While you're here, I did have one more question about Olympic lifts. I've seen, yeah, yeah, I have to open this can of worms because I saw one of your posts. It was a scroll post, and you encouraged everyone to scroll, read through it before you left a comment. So maybe talk about what this post was. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Well, I've posted on this a number of times. There's one that I just straight up said power clean is overrated on the first slide.
That was the one.
Yeah, so that I remember
And I agree
that
with
one.
you. I
That
so
okay,
agree. Yeah.
okay. That one stirred some discussions, some DMs.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, Olympic lifts they're awesome, right? Like it's moving a weight explosively and and then catching it, whether it's in the front rack or overhead. And they can be fun. They can make you feel super badass, right? Like you throw a weight up over your head, like it's a good feeling. So they have a lot of like attractive qualities to them, right? However, if we look at the physical qualities that we're trying to develop in an athlete, things like strength, things like rate of force development, things like, I mean, you can break things down like eccentric rate of force development or, all these different things, hip extension power, like you can get real specific with it. I just don't think that Olympic lifts are special for developing any particular one of those physical qualities. Certainly, if we're looking at, maximum strength, you're going to do that more effectively with just basic strength training movements. Certainly, if you're looking at, cross sectional area or like muscle hypertrophy, you're going to do that with basic strength training. You don't need to be throwing the weight around and catching it. Um, and people would acknowledge that. When it comes to explosive capabilities, and this is sort of the central argument, I guess, is, a lot of times people say, well, okay, we're accelerating the weight fast, we're developing explosive strength. And my argument is, well, you're gonna whatever explosive thing you're trying to develop, whether it's uh, fast motor unit recruitment or it's fast rate coding or if it's activating fast twitch fibers, like whatever thing you think you need to develop with Olympic lifts, you're going to develop it better by sprinting and jumping. Like whatever that explosive thing is, that adaptation that you think you're going to get from training explosively, you're going to develop it best by sprinting and jumping. And so there's not really a clear reason or like a clear adaptation that you need Olympic lifts for. And that's kind of my argument. And so then you can totally do them, and I do them myself because I like them. But I just view it as this is just part of my strength training. This is just like okay, I want to have some strength pulling things off the floor, and so deadlift is obviously like kind of the fundamental way to do that. But if I do cleans and deadlifts, that works too. Like it fits in. Um, so you can totally do them, but then you have to acknowledge, yeah, well, these are harder to learn than other things. Um, Certainly in a group setting, if I have to teach a bunch of people this stuff, like, I mean, you got to put some time investment into getting a clean or a snatch right in it, certainly in a group. And you're going to have some challenging cases within that group where it's like, man, this person just does not get this. And now they're doing something, either it's so light and it's so low intent that we're really not training anything here other than just learning the lift. Um, or you have the maybe the person who does get it, but now okay, now they're starting to throw weight around, and now we got to think about keeping the reins on them and keeping them safe. So there's a lot of reasons why a coach might find them difficult to implement. And so my whole thing is like, you don't have to do these. Whatever thing you think you're going to get from them, you can get it elsewhere. And so I just, yeah, the kind of the triggering comment was power clean is overrated. And then I launched into that whole explanation. Um,
You walked right into that one.
yeah. But I also made sure like on that first slide, power clean is overrated was a video of me doing a power clean with 130 kilos, which is not lightweight. So I was like, I've done these, I've gone down this road, I've trained them a whole lot. I still think they're overrated. I still think when people are talking about how this is a vital thing for explosive strength, or they're talking about all these qualities that they develop, I'm like, yeah, I mean, we can decelerate things in a lot of ways. Like the clean catch is not special. Um, so yeah, that's my rant on Olympic lifts, I guess.
I get it. That makes a lot of sense. And just thinking about the athlete of today who practices 3 to 4 times a week, it's like, do you even have time as a coach to truly teach it? And if you do, are they recovered enough to even perform the exercise how you want them to perform and get the benefit out of it? And I don't know if you're on X, but I see a lot of strength coaches posting on X their athletes power cleaning, and I can't help but cringe and be like, "Oh, that form. I don't know if
Yeah,
this is worth
sometimes.
doing with this kid." So,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely not criticizing it, and you know, different contexts exist. I think certainly like the context that I'm in, or maybe the one that you're in, where it's like, yeah, you're a performance coach, kind of complementing the sport. You have limited time with a person. It's like they don't need to be a priority. Absolutely, you're coaching a professional track athlete. Their whole life is dedicated to getting faster, or like a dunker. Like people that all they're trying to do is jump high and dunk, and so they don't have sport practice, they don't have all those things, and they're committing all this time to training. It's like, you want to use Olympic lifts in that context, sure, makes sense. But yeah, it's just not a thing I think that is vital for any athlete. And so if your context doesn't make it easy, then just don't do it. Just don't need to.
no, I think that's a really good message that it's not a necessity, and there's other ways like we just talked about in this episode to build that power that are easier to teach and kids still enjoy them too. So, I mean, I think
Yeah.
jumping is a very liberating and empowering exercise, and kids can also feel badass doing that. It's not just the
Yes.
power cleans.
Yes, definitely.
So this was great. I will leave your Instagram account, Jump Science, correct?
It's jump dot science.
Jump.science. I'll leave that in the caption below so everyone can follow your great content. I know you post a lot of data as well. So if you're curious about that, definitely head over to the Instagram. And Daniel, thank you so much for coming on, and I'll see everyone on the next episode.